Hey folks, it's Nate, and you may have noticed that I'm not in my garage today. It's because I have a slightly different kind of video to record today than usual. You may have noticed in some of my videos where I'm wheeling and getting any footage from inside the Jeep that I have a tablet mounted on the dash, and I use that for trail maps. And I decided that something I might be well suited to record for you guys is a comparison between all the various different kind of Android or iOS-based mapping apps that you might find available for your mobile device. I took my trail tablet, which is a relatively new Samsung Galaxy Tab A, I think. It has a data plan, right? So it can get updates from the internet while I'm out in the woods. I installed a bunch of different mapping apps on it. I tested each one out on a short course near my house. In this video, I'm going to tell you guys the good and bad of the different apps that I reviewed. Hopefully you can learn something about what apps are out there and what might be right for you. So, stay tuned. Alright folks, so a quick overview here. What I've done is I've picked up a number of different apps. Some of them are pay and some of them are free. I'll try to outline that as I review each app. I'm going to go over Gaia GPS, OnX Offroad, Backcountry Navigator XE, Avenza Maps, Google Maps, and Maprika. Now, Google Maps I threw in there not because I think it's a good trail app, but because it's a good baseline. So maybe we'll cover that one first, just to give you guys something to compare everything to, and then we'll move from there. The first app I'm looking at here is Google Maps. And Google Maps is what you'd expect it to be. It's basically a good all-around mapping application that's great for vehicle navigation, city navigation, walking directions, things like that. It's not so great for backcountry stuff, where you're in the middle of the woods. You can get a decent map, and you could probably use it to get yourself out of the woods if you're lost, but it's not going to show you trails, it's not going to show you anything about land ownership, it's not going to show you really anything that an off-roader or a hiker or even a mountain biker really cares much about, except an emergency map to get you back to civilization if you are just flat out lost. So I'm not going to say that this won't save your life, but it certainly isn't going to be a great off-road trail map application. Some of its benefits are it's accessible on any device. If you have a smartphone, you can run Google Maps. It's running on both Android and iOS. You can go, it probably came with your phone or your tablet if you have an Android device. If you have an iOS device, you can just get it from the App Store, and it's quick and easy to download, and it's pretty easy to get up and running. All you need is a Google account. It does support several types of map overlays. Things like it's got a satellite view, it's also got a terrain view. It also has things like traffic and bicycling and 3D views. None of those are really all that helpful. Bicycling maybe when you're out on the trail, because in my area there's a lot of off-road mountain biking, and those cycling trails are included to some extent on the map, but not to the extent that you might expect on some of the off-road comparisons. It does not seem to have a track logging feature. I don't know if it's just that I couldn't find it, or if it actually doesn't exist, but I didn't see any easy way to start up a track log. The screen doesn't stay on unless you're in navigation mode, so if you want to pop open a map and monitor it while you're driving, that's a little less than helpful, because you're going to have to keep fiddling with the map to get it to stay on the screen without your tablet or phone going to sleep. As soon as you go into navigation mode, however, it does stay up, but you're not going to be using navigation mode most of the time on the trails. You're going to be just monitoring a map to see where you are and where you want to go next. Centering yourself automatically on the map seems to automatically zoom out, and that I found to be a little bit of a pain in the butt, because I wanted a closer view, because when I'm on the trails, I need to be able to see, where the next trail intersection is and whatnot. And as soon as you center yourself on the map, which is the only way to get the map to follow you as you're moving, or the way to recenter yourself on the map without scrolling all over the place, it would zoom out automatically, which I found to be kind of annoying. It does include a points of interest feature, which you can see in my little demo here. You can tap on any one of these little icons that you see here on the screen, and it'll give you a little more information. Most of this information is crowdsourced, which means that other Google users have submitted this stuff. They've submitted their own pictures, they've submitted descriptions and reviews and whatnot, which makes it great for, you know, finding a good restaurant to go eat at or to find that scenic overlook. But it's not necessarily great for in the middle of the woods where there's not a lot of people, because nobody's out there reviewing, you know, interesting things they found in the middle of the woods. There's no trail or land ownership information that I could find. There were some very common trails. You'll see it on all of my examples. There's a trail that runs through Jim Thorpe, kind of a trail. It's called the Switchback Railroad. It's an old gravity railroad. That's on all these maps because it's a really, really commonplace thing. A lot of tourists come to hike it and bike on it. None of the other maps, or none of the other trails that you might see cut into this satellite view were marked on the map at all. They're just not existent as far as Google Maps are concerned. And that's about it for Google Maps. Like I said, it's just a good overall, kind of not really great for this, but good enough to get you out of the woods if you need it sort of map. It's not great for trail navigation. The next app on the list is Avenza Maps. Now, Avenza Maps, I didn't take a lot of time with this thing because I wasn't impressed by the overall UI. It seems like it only supports user-created maps. I didn't find any option for an online map. You can see in this map selection screen that I had a northeastern Pennsylvania trails, which I think I downloaded myself when I first opened up the app. Seems like a user-uploaded map. Somebody got one of these pamphlets you can pick up, you know, at any store, and you can use this to sort of try to navigate Northeast PA, you know, hiking trails and whatever. Somebody scanned it and uploaded it to Avenza. Now, so I don't want to pick too much on the map because it's not provided necessarily. A user uploaded this, and you know, you can never trust users to have high quality uploads. But it's what I have to work with. I did notice that the map has terrible resolution. As soon as you zoom in close, which is what you would probably do if you were navigating trails that you're standing on or driving on, it gets really pixelated. But again, that's not Avenza's fault, I don't think. That's, you know, whoever uploaded this map. It didn't seem to have any track logging. I do believe there was an option to mark, right, to make a waypoint. So that's a good thing. Like I said, in the case of Avenza, the maps are only as good as what users have uploaded in your area. This is both a good and a bad thing, right? If you're a tech-savvy person, you can certainly upload your own map, and once it's uploaded, you can then position it and orient it in the right ways. There's usually, I haven't tried it with Avenza, but I know with Maprika, what you do is you go out, you upload your map, and you say, okay, this point I'm standing at right now is this point on the map. And then you go to another point on the map, and then you say this point where I'm here now is this point on the map. And then it uses all that place data to orient the map, you know, physically. So anyway, my point is that you can make an awesome map and upload it to Avenza if you like the UI, and then you just have to go through the work of keeping that updated and keeping it, you know, tracked to the proper GPS coordinates. So that's all good stuff if you're willing to do that. If you just wanted an app that you can download and start using, Avenza might not be for you. There may be no maps in your area, and that's not necessarily a great thing, because you can't just download it and start using it. You have to download it, figure out how to get a map up there if no one's made one, figure out how to orient the map, and then on top of that, it seems to be a little bit lacking in features. I would say, and no offense to the folks who wrote Avenza, I know they probably love their app, it felt like this was the most underwhelming app I found in my whole review here. I will say that the tracking seems accurate enough. Once I got onto the road where you can see it on the map here, it seemed to follow me pretty well, so that was good. The UI seemed clean enough. Like I said, it's just missing a couple features. It does, like I said, it supports waypoints. It does not support a track log. I really like track logs. I don't use them every time I'm out, but they're really helpful when you're exploring a new area or if you're trying to plan a trail route, right? So these are all really good things to have. Avenza also didn't keep the screen on for me, and I could not find an option to a setting in the options that would keep the screen on for me. Maybe it's there, maybe it's not, I don't know, I couldn't find it. Okay, the next app on my list is Gaia GPS. Now, Gaia GPS was recommended to me by a couple of friends and some folks on Twitter. I have heard of it before. It seemed like a decent solution, so let's give it a go. So I did find that the user interface is a little utilitarian, a little less fluid, a little less user-friendly maybe is the word I'm looking for. It does include a lot of information on the screen though, which is actually kind of nice for someone like me. I like to see the information right in front of me in case I want it, right? So things like, you see this spot here for max elevation and moving time and all that stuff. A lot of people don't care about that. I kind of like to see numbers because I'm just kind of a numbers guy. The default map that you see here is a topo map. I didn't find many other options for maps. You can see there are maps for purchase here. If you were to register a membership, I suppose you can get these. I did not pay for Gaia GPS, so I didn't have access to those maps. It does include trails on the topo map. You can see them here as dotted lines. It doesn't include names for any of these trails. I don't know how well it'll work in an established off-road park that changes frequently. But in the area that I'm in right here, you can see these dotted lines. Those are all trails, but they're also private land. You're not supposed to be back there. So there's nothing here telling you that you can't be back there, but it shows you these trails as though they're a place you can go. So these are the sort of things you need to be careful of when you're off-road or even when you're hiking or biking. You need to keep an idea of, whose land you're on and the status of that land is. Gaia GPS does support track logging. So you can see here that I start up a track log before I start my descent back down the mountain from my little test run here. Gaia GPS does keep the screen on for you instead of having to fiddle with it like Google Maps was doing to me. The app also keeps track of which direction you're facing. However, something you should keep in mind with any of these apps, it doesn't know what direction you're facing if the device you're on does not have an integrated compass. So smartphones can have a compass in them, and a lot of phones do because they're used pretty frequently for navigation. A lot of tablets, on the other hand, do not include compasses because they're not as frequently used for navigation. A tablet is more often used for sitting at home browsing the internet than your phone that you might be walking around New York City in. What it does is it figures out which direction you're facing based on GPS coordinates. Personally, I feel like the UI could use a little bit of work, but it is very functional, and it gives you a lot of information, like I said, and it's not unusable, that's for certain. I wouldn't mind seeing some more options for maps. Again, I didn't pay for this, so it could be that if you pay for it and use one of those additional maps that are there, it's a much better experience. In this case, it's a decent topo map, and you can certainly use this to find your way around the woods, so not a bad app. Okay, so our next app is OnX Offroad. Now, I found OnX Offroad because I was looking for an application that would actually tell us land parcel ownership information. And somebody suggested OnX Hunt, which is another app that's run by the same people who run OnX Offroad. OnX Offroad is a relatively new app. I only learned about it a couple months ago. OnX Hunt is something that's been around for a while, and its whole purpose in life is to help hunters find land that they can hunt on. So the idea is you have a smartphone app in your pocket, you can mark where your tree stand is, you can understand what agency or what person owns the land that you're on, so you know if you're allowed to be hunting there or not. Sounds like the sort of thing off-roaders might want if they're unsure of the ownership status of land that they're off-roading on, right? Now, I want to be clear, I did purchase OnX Offroad, but that's only because the functionality of OnX Offroad is considerably lower without their subscription service. It does function without it, but it's very limited. I wanted to do this review during the 7-day trial they gave me, but, well, to be honest, I just couldn't get out and get the recording done within the 7 days. So I just ponied up to $30. It's a year for $30, and that renews yearly, so I didn't think that was too much money. It does look like a very nice app, so I'm not upset about spending the money. One thing I don't like about this app, which I'm trying to demonstrate right now in the video, is that there's this lower menu at the bottom of the screen. When you're in landscape mode, the menu's not there and I don't know how to get it. I can't find a way to bring the menu up. If you put it in portrait mode, the menu is right there at the bottom and it's really easy to bring up. So I don't know if this is a bug I've run into, if the app is designed to be run in portrait mode and not landscape. I feel like mapping apps should be at home in landscape mode, and this one isn't. It does work very well in landscape mode. You can do some of the UI elements, but some of the options that you can change only seem to work in portrait mode, and I don't know why that is. It does do waypoints, and it does do track logs, so those are good things to have. It does show trails on the maps. I don't know where they get this trail data from, and that's something I'm kind of curious about, because all of them seem to have a different sort of type of trail data. You notice the trails are there in those dotted lines over there that follow some of these dirt roads that you can see. But some of them had names included, and some of them did not. I don't know why. I don't know where they got the names from, because being a local, I know these trails. None of them that I know of have names, yet some of them are named on these apps, and I don't know where they came from. This app does show land ownership information, like I mentioned, and if you basically tap on the map on something that's not a UI element, if you just tap somewhere on this satellite map or on the topo map, there's a topo feature of this, by the way, which does not work in the demo that I'm recording here, but I did get it to work after I was done recording. I don't know what the deal was, but there is a topo version, there's a hybrid version, and there's a satellite version. It's supposed to be in hybrid mode right now in the demo, and it's not. I don't know why. But anyway, what I was trying to say was you can get land parcel information out of OnX Offroad. It does not, however, seem to show you privately owned land, only government body owned land. And that may be because they designed this around OnX Hunt, and OnX Hunt, you'd expect, would probably want to show you things like game lands owned by the state, public lands owned by, state bodies and whatnot. It does not, if I were to tap on someone's house here or something, it doesn't tell me who owns it. It doesn't tell me who owns that land, that parcel of land. I don't know why. Maybe it's a privacy thing. Maybe it's because, like I said, it's a carryover from OnX Hunt. Like I said, it does do track logging that I'm showing you here now. It doesn't by default show you what direction you're facing, which is a feature I like in mapping applications, especially when you're navigating in the woods like this. Sometimes you don't have a compass in front of you, you can't tell which direction you're facing just by looking at the map. However, it is an option you can turn on in the options of this app. I just didn't know about it until after I was done recording this little section. One thing I would like to see with OnX Offroad is how it worked at an established off-road park like AOAA or Roush Creek, where there's lots of trails going all over the place, and they're frequently updated, right? So an off-road park is always expanding, it's always changing, there's trails getting closed and opened whenever, right? So I would be curious to see how quickly something like OnX Offroad gets updated when trails change. And that, I think, is all I've got to say about OnX Offroad. Okay, our next app is Backcountry Navigator XE. The first thing I want to say about Backcountry Navigator XE is that there's also, I think, another app called Backcountry Navigator Pro. Pro, you pay for. I don't think there's even an option to use it for free. You download it, you install it, you run it in trial mode, and then you buy it. That's how it works. Backcountry Navigator XE is free. You can just download it and run it. I don't think I found anything in XE that lets me purchase it, right? It is what it is. So that's the first thing to be aware of. Pro may have a different feature set than XE. In fact, it probably does have a different feature set than XE. And I did reach out to the folks who create Backcountry Navigator, and they told me, I think, that Pro is cross-platform and XE is not. Or maybe it's the other way around. But one of them runs on both Android and iOS. The other one's just Android. I didn't find a whole lot of map options in Backcountry Navigator. There's no satellite map. The default is this topo map that I'm showing you. Topo map does show trail data, which is great. Some of them have names on them, I think. Yes, some of them are named, and I don't know where these names come from. It does allow downloadable maps, but I'm not sure how that works. Can users upload them, or is there some, do the people at Backcountry Navigator select maps and upload them? I'm not sure where they come from. It does show what direction you're facing. Again, if your device has a compass, it'll update based on physically where you're facing. Otherwise, it uses GPS information to figure out which direction you're moving, and that's how it changes the pointer. Like I said, it does show trails. It does not show land parcel information as far as I could find. So far, the only app I found that does show that is OnX Offroad. Starting a track log was a little convoluted if you ask me. And I probably spent 2 minutes just trying to figure out how to do it, partially because I missed the button. So what you have to do when you go to create a new track is you bring up the little menu and you say you want to add a track. There's a little plus button at the bottom. You want to go record a track. And then once you go to record a track, once you've named it and whatnot, it says you have to have a trip in order to record a track. So I guess it groups these things, right, into a trip, quote-unquote trip. So the problem was I missed the button that says create a trip, right? It turns out that it's right at the top of the window where you would select a trip to add your track to, and I missed the button. If I had seen that, it would have been quicker, you know, and it would have just taken me a few seconds to get the track log started. But it did seem like it was sort of leading me around, and it wasn't obvious how to get the track log started. Again, maybe that's just me. I was trying to hurry up here, and, you know, I just missed the button. When you're moving, the screen does not stay on its own by default. However, I did find an option inside of the settings that lets you tell the app to keep the screen on. It seemed like a weird way to do it. You know, you'd think it would stay on by default automatically, but I guess that depends on how you're using this thing. If you're using it on your phone that you just stick in your pocket when you're not physically staring at it, it would make more sense for the screen to turn off automatically to save battery, right? So, you know, one way or the other. It's nice that there is an option to turn the screen on, but it was not on by default. The app does not seem to switch between portrait and landscape mode, and I don't know why that is. It seems whatever orientation your device is in when you start the app up, that's what you're stuck with. If you turn it one way or the other, it doesn't turn. Now, again, I'd imagine if you're on a handheld smart device and you're walking around the woods, you may want it to stay in whatever orientation it's in. And honestly, with a tablet on my dash, again, you probably don't want it to be switching. So I'm not really mad at the fact that it doesn't switch. I just thought it was odd. Most apps will natively switch between portrait and landscape based on the orientation of the device. And that is that for Backcountry Navigator. Okay, and the next app on my list is Maprika. Maprika is probably the app that I'm most familiar with, so I may be able to ramble on about Maprika for quite a while. It's not necessarily my favorite app, but I've been using it for years because a lot of trail guides that guide at the AOAA and with the Jeep Jamboree use Maprika. Because, one, we have good trail maps in Maprika. Maprika also has this feature where you can track friends, right? So we can all friend each other, quote-unquote friend each other on Maprika, and then I can track where other guides are within the park, right? So it's great for the Jamboree because we have 6 or 7 guides running around with different groups of 20 or 30 Jeeps at a time. And I can see where they are, so I can tell if we're going to encounter them on the trail or if we're going to run into each other, that kind of thing. That's a very useful feature of Maprika. Like Avenza, Maprika is almost 100% user-created maps. However, it does have a default online map, and that's what I'm showing you here. The online map is basically based on Google Maps. You can see the Google logo right down there at the corner. You can see that it looks almost identical as far as features and whatnot to Google Maps, and that's because it is. It's the same map. It's got the same basic overlay, which is the points of interest and the street names and whatever. It does not have things like traffic and all the different overlays that Google then lays on top of these maps, because that's a Google Maps thing, and I'm sure Maprika is not allowed to use it. It does do track logging. I didn't turn it on to demonstrate that during the view here, but it works like you'd expect. It also shows you what direction you're facing. Again, the same disclaimer about whether your device has a compass or not. Maprika is one of these apps that's as good as the user community that surrounds it. So if you have a lot of local people who like to use Maprika, you'll be able to find maps that might be pretty good in your area. I've used it in off-road parks. Some of them have great maps, some of them don't. I've used it in amusement parks, right? So there's a couple amusement parks in the area that actually have pretty good maps that they give you. Some of them have their own apps, but sometimes all you really want is a simple map, especially if you and your family all have Maprika open. You can see where each other are on the map. That's really helpful. So that is a thing that you can do with Maprika with their user-uploaded maps. I'm sure you could do that with other apps as well. One downfall that I see to Maprika is the way it tracks you on the map. And again, this is a personal preference thing. It doesn't keep you centered on the map. What it does is, even once you've centered yourself, it waits till you get to the edge of the map, and then it snaps to your location, right? So you'll see it happen during my demo here. It does not include any land ownership data, so you don't know whose land you're on. Maprika also supports waypoints in the form of, I think they call them favorites. They're those little stars you saw on the map when I initially showed you the map of AOAA when I first opened this up. Like I mentioned, this app doesn't have any built-in trail data, so you'll see all of the trail data that you saw in a lot of the other apps that had sort of more off-road friendly maps. They had some trail data, whether it was accurate or not. This has none. This is literally just the same thing that Google gives you. Another nice thing about Maprika is that it does keep the screen on for you when you have it open. It didn't used to do that, so I used to have this extra app that would keep the screen on for me, but it does now, so that's a good, nice thing they've updated. All right, folks, so there you go. There's my overview of, a little over half a dozen apps that you could use for trail maps when you're out in the woods. Whether you're hiking or off-road or biking, whatever. I hope this video has been helpful. I hope it's giving you some insight into how these different apps work and maybe saves you a little bit of trial and error when trying to find what app might be right for you. I'm not going to rank these apps from the from the first to the 6th or 7th or however many I went through. I will say that I like Maprika. I really think that OnX Offroad has a lot of promise. There might be a couple of glitches and bugs in there that they need to work out, but like I said, it's a relatively new app. The other apps were all pretty good. The only one I was a little underwhelmed by was Avenza, and I mentioned that when I was reviewing it. Google Maps also, like I said, isn't exactly great for off-road navigation, but it is a decent map for just about everything else. If you're anywhere near civilization, Google Maps will probably get you what you need better than probably any of these other apps, because it's right there at your fingertips already, and that's really what it's made for, and Google's done a pretty good job of making it good at that. Off-road navigation is a thing that Google probably doesn't care about, and that's where all these other apps start to shine. So I hope I've helped fuel your own decision process on what apps you want to use when you're off-road, and I hope you found this video useful. If you like what you saw here, please hit that like button. If you want to see more videos like this, let me know. I may delve a little deeper onto some of these. For example, how do I upload a map to Maprika? That's a thing I'd like to know. I haven't tried it myself, but I know it can't be terribly difficult, but I don't know how to do it, and maybe you want to know. So maybe someday I'll do a how-to on how to do that, and with maybe some of these other user-created mapping apps. All right, so don't forget, if you want to support the channel, you can do so via Patreon, or you can go hit up SWBCrawler.com to buy some merch. We have neck gaiters now. And with that, I'll let you guys go. I hope you had a good time watching this video, and remember, get out there and wheel. I'll catch you in the next video.